is X-Cult Baby, and recently my fiance Nathan has been getting preached to by one of our Christian friends. Nathan isn't a huge fan of this, and to be honest, neither am I, but, I was a Jehovah's Witness once, so I understand why some Christians feel the need to proselytize to their friends and family. So yeah, no hard feelings there. But anyways, among the apologetics that he wanted Nathan to look into was a YouTube channel called Living Waters, and subsequently Nathan asked me to look into it, and now I am going to be responding to one of their apologetics videos here for you today. And the video is entitled, "Think Christianity Isn't True? Wait Till You See This." Needless to say, I am still not a Christian after having watched the video, but let's take a look anyways.
Truth. Some people define it as that which conforms to reality. But whose reality, yours or mine? Let's define it as that which conforms to the mind of God.
Well, 12 seconds in and we're already off to a great start. The jump from truth conforms to reality to God must exist is just such a huge fucking jump. It doesn't even make any sense. And when he says, whose reality, yours or mine, that's just crazy. I mean, I don't go around thinking that everybody else lives in a different version of reality than me. They might have a slightly different perception, but in order to really just live your life, you kind of have to assume that everyone else around us is experiencing the same reality as you do in order to function, right? I mean, if I didn't assume that everybody else was, for the most part, seeing the same things I was seeing and, like walking through the same doors, that would definitely change the way that I live my life. And yeah, there's room for error in that because our brains and our senses aren't perfect, and sometimes people experience delusions. But the reason that we know that some people are experiencing delusions and not just their own version of reality is that we can measure up what they think that they are experiencing to what the majority of other people are experiencing. And perhaps more importantly, the power of prediction lets us figure out what should be the case. That's how we know what reality is, after all. To expand on that point, I can't say with 100% certainty that the sun will rise tomorrow. But based on the fact that the sun has always risen every single day, and that our scientific understanding of how the sun and Earth interact with each other seems to continuously hold up and hasn't failed yet, I feel like I can be about as confident that the sun will rise tomorrow as I can be confident in pretty much anything. And besides, whether the sun actually does rise or not, I have to live my life assuming that it will. I can't function as a person if I can't assume that reality will continue to function largely the same way that it always has. So yeah, to sum up, my certainty in reality isn't absolute, but it's worked for me and everybody else so far, so I really haven't been given sufficient reason to think that determining the truth of something based on how well it conforms to reality isn't good enough. So yeah, I'm going to keep using that as my standard. Thank you very much.
When God speaks, it is correct. It is true. Because there's only one reality that really matters, and that is the reality of God.
First of all, God totally lies in the Bible. Right off the top of my head, he told Adam the day that he ate from the forbidden fruit, he would die. And Adam not only didn't die that day, but lived long enough to have at least 3 children. Second of all, the guy here is clearly trying to set up this idea that everyone's version of reality is entirely subjective except for God's version of reality. But even if that were the case, if everyone's individual experiences were as a different reality, and God's reality was a different reality from that, then his opinion of what is reality would be just as subjective as everybody else's. He just happens to have the biggest stick and can tell everybody to bow down to his version of reality, even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else. If God's version of reality is the ultimate truth, why didn't he just make us with the ability to see things the same way that he does from his perspective, so that we're all sharing the same version of reality? And all of that, your reality, my reality nonsense aside, why does there have to be some ultimate absolute version of truth that supersedes confirmation to reality? This argument has just never made sense to me. I mean, when I talk about truth, I'm not talking about truth with a capital T. I'm just talking about the degree to which something appears to be true, how much it conforms to reality. If it's clearly inconsistent with reality, like, for example, the claim that a couple thousand years ago there was a worldwide flood that covered even the tallest mountain peaks, then yeah, I should be able to look at the world around me for evidence to back up that claim. If it does not appear to be consistent with reality or what I would expect to see from that kind of event, then I would say it's not true, and that would be the end of that. And again, I do have to make a couple of assumptions in order to operate this way. But those assumptions have worked out to be true consistently, so I have to assume that they will continue to work, because otherwise I don't know a better tried and true method of finding out what is true.
When you consider the major religions of the world, they all claim to point to truth. In the Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, it says that truth is, well, it's elusive, it's mysterious, it's hard to find. Buddha, he said, truth is hidden from us. Muhammad, he said that he pointed to the truth. Jesus Christ enters onto the scene in which he says, oh no, truth is not elusive, it's not mysterious, it's not hard to find.
Yeah, like I said before, it seems like we're talking about two very different things here when it comes to this conversation about truth. He's talking about like a quest for ultimate, absolute, life-changing truth with a capital T. I don't really think that that is something that exists, although I understand why people look for it. People want very tough questions to have a complete, simple, and satisfying answer. They believe that those gift-wrapped answers have to be out there somewhere and refuse to accept anything less. But reality is not always that simple. Let's say, for example, you've lost a loved one. In fact, you probably have, or you will if you haven't yet in your life. You might be wondering why they died. Why do they have to be gone from your life? You want them back in your life, and you don't like living in a reality where they're not there with you. Then a Jehovah's Witness comes along and tells you that your loved one died because Adam and Eve screwed up humanity thousands of years ago, but God's plan is already set in motion and will bring your loved one back to life forever. That answer is an easy one to accept, especially when you're in so much pain. It makes it so that you don't really have to accept the reality that your loved one is gone forever. You don't have to accept the harsh reality of the situation. But whether you accept it or not, the reality is still real. If people lived forever, we would be putting a serious strain on environmental resources, even more so than we already are. Not aging and dying might temporarily be advantageous to individual members of a population, but it would not be good for the survival of the species as a whole. Evolutionarily speaking, we're only optimized for living for basically as long as we're able to propagate. So our species has a limited lifespan. We don't have a whole lot of evolutionary advantage after that. Of course, we as people do not measure each other's worth based on whether or not we can or do procreate and propagate our species. But as a whole, that's kind of what evolution has optimized us to do. Pretty much what all biological organisms are optimized to do. So once that usefulness is up, we're not really optimized for survival anymore. And that is not a very pleasant reality to think about for most people. To be honest, it doesn't bother me that much. In some ways, it makes it easier for me to accept death as just, the natural conclusion of life. But for a lot of people, that isn't the answer they want. So someone else who purports to have some kind of ultimate, truer than true truth with a capital T is the person that people are actually going to listen to for answers.
I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, they said, who is this man? For he speaks with authority. You see, the Pharisees would speak from authority, and they would quote the different prophets of old, but Jesus enters into the scene and he didn't speak from authority. He spoke with authority, and he spoke exactly what his Father wanted him to share. You consider these other religions, it's almost like they're grasping for straws, and I understand that that is a very offensive thing to say. But remember, religion, it's man's attempt to either become God or get to God. But Christianity is God's attempt to get to man, and he did it through Jesus Christ.
Okay, we're finally down to the meat of it. Why is Christianity true and all the religions are bunk? Because other religious people claim to speak for God, but Jesus was actually God? That's it? If I was talking to Jesus and the so-called Prophet Muhammad in the same room, and they both claim to have done miracles and have this ultimate truth, and Jesus says, I am God, and Muhammad says, I speak the word of Allah, I would still tell both of them to prove it. Just because one of them claims to be speaking with authority instead of from authority, that doesn't make any difference at all. That's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything at all.
Christianity is the only true story where the hero dies for the villain. Think about it. The only one who can condemn you is the only one who's willing to reach into the black cavern of your heart and do the one thing for you that you can't do for yourself. And that is to make you right before God.
Appeal to emotion. Next.
Jesus is the truth. So now, the ball's in your court. But this isn't a playground, this is a battleground. There's a battle for your soul. There's many people telling you that this is right, this is wrong, but you need to rise up and you need to search these things out yourself. But where are you going to go? The truth? It'll make you odd. It'll make you peculiar. And the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who proclaim it.
I just love the sweet, sweet smell of Christian persecution complex in the morning. Loving Jesus doesn't make people hate you. Having the ultimate truth doesn't make people hate you. You know what does make people hate you, though? Going around telling people they can't possibly know anything for sure unless they follow your religion because they can't possibly know what is true. That's really annoying. And evangelical Christians have this complex even worse because, they go out and bother people who are just minding their own business, trying to live their lives, and try to get people to talk about something that's very personal and oftentimes uncomfortable. And then some of them just straight up tell people that they're doomed and they're going to hell. And it's like, they think that people hate them because they have the truth. No. People hate you because you're fucking annoying. Sorry. And the rest of this video is just emotional appeals that are clearly just meant for people who are already Christians. And more of that, I'm proud to be Jesus's bitch and you should too type of stuff. So yeah, that's all the video that I'm going to do. If you want to watch the whole video, link is in the description. I am definitely going to be covering more Living Waters apologetics in the future, so definitely keep an eye out for that. If you have any ideas or topics for future videos, or you just want to see my response to some other video that you find, let me know on my Discord server. There's a whole channel there specifically for video suggestions. And, you can just hang out with me on the server. That's fine. Link to the Discord is in the description. You can also follow me on Twitter at xcultbaby and send me suggestions there. And lastly, if you want to support my work, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. The lowest patron tier is only $1 a month, and every little bit helps. I am xcultbaby, reminding you to go free yourself. Thank you for watching. Additional thanks to my amazing patrons. Thank you so much for continuing to support my work.
Ever are we at a crossroads that could ever bring us to our knees?